Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining us this morning for our Emerge Stronger Retail Bootcamp presentation on our financial strategies. I'm Nicole Hall. For those who may have missed it, I'm the Business Development Manager for Restaurant Retail with the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. Thank you so much for investing your time with us this morning, as well as for your business. The goal of this Emerge Stronger program is to really help you build strategies and put forth initiatives to help your business through this pandemic and through some of the challenges that you may face as a business owner. Do please note that this session will be recorded. And this program is sponsored by Pepco Holdings in partnership with the Economic Development Corporation, Bowie Bick, as well as FSC First. So we thank you for your time this morning. Just some general housekeeping rules. The key to this is to just be positive about your business. Be positive and hopeful of the information that you're going to hear today. Everyone will be muted and your video will be disabled for the duration of the webinar. But we will have question and answer sessions throughout the question and answer opportunities through the Q&A session or Q&A option on your screen below. In addition, at the end of the webinar, we will unmute participants and allow for dialogue if you have any additional questions, because we really want to hear from the business community what concerns you may have, and this is your opportunity to speak with an expert in the field who can really give you some great tips. So please feel free to stay on board at the end so you can get that direct connection. As I said, you will be muted during the duration of the session. Questions will go in the Q&A, both privately and publicly, if you want to ask someone specifically a question. Take notes. You should have received an email with the workbook that will run concurrently with all of the 4 presentations as part of the Emerge Stronger series. This is a great tool for helping you build a strategic plan as you progress through the webinar series. In addition, you'll be emailed a strategy worksheet that Darlene is going to take us through today that can really help you when you're looking at those cost control measures and inventory measures. So please make sure you check your email. We'll be sending out an additional link at the end of this session, also with the strategy spreadsheet, but also with our survey following this session. We really want to get your feedback of what information you need, as well as any additional supplemental information you may want to see from us. If you have any questions, please use the chat box as well as the Q&A box. And just a bit about our presenter. She is Darlene Mitchell. She is the Financial Inventory and Planning Consultant with DY Mitchell. She's going to go into a bit more detail about herself, but again, welcome. We are very excited to have you here today, and I'll turn it over to you, Darlene.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I'm actually sitting in Dallas, so it's a little early for me, but I am ready to go and answer all your questions, and hopefully I give you some value through my presentation. I am a inventory expert. I've been doing this for a very long time, and you can see some of the companies I've been with: Old Navy, Gap, Chico's, Payless. So I've been with a lot of companies, and I've done this for not only other companies, but I've done it for myself in my own boutique, and now I do it for other boutique and brand owners. And actually, my career started in Northern Virginia. So I used to be an assistant buyer for May Company. So I worked out of the Boston Commons Mall there, May Company. I'm sorry, in I think it was Arlington, Virginia. And I lived in Hyattsville for 2 years. I went to church in Mitchellville, so I'm very familiar with PG County. In 1998, I moved because there was a snowstorm and I couldn't take it anymore. So I moved to California.
Well, come on back to Prince George's when you get a chance.
Oh no. I will visit. So I just want to walk you guys through kind of how to control your inventory, what financials you should be looking at as you are building a plan, as you're building your inventory. Now, most of this presentation will be towards people who have product, but you can do the same thing with service industry as well. Instead of having a product or category, you'll pop in your services. So there is a way for you to use this information as well. So the first thing I want to go through is what you'll need to do this work. You will need an accounting system. It's like QuickBooks. So most of my clients use Intuit. They use QuickBooks. You'll need something that has a record of your purchase orders, your inventory, and it's usually found in your POS. I know a lot of my clients use Shopify. Shopify does not have that information, but we have a separate Excel spreadsheet where they have their inventory that's coming in or their purchase orders. But the inventory, once it's received, is in Shopify. And then next, you'll need some kind of software. So as Nicole mentioned, there is a spreadsheet that I sent you. You will have to use it in Excel or Numbers to fill it out. So the agenda, the way we're going to lay this out is we're going to look at 3 phases of financial planning. And there is the pre-planning. And this is where you're just creating your annual, your quarter, your monthly, and your weekly sales and your inventory plans for your future. And then we'll go into the in-season analysis and reforecasting. And this is where you are looking at what is actually happening in your business, the trends in your business, and you'll be able to maximize where you're having success and you'll minimize where you may have mistakes or some errors in the business. And that happens. So first of all, no one does it perfectly, but this is when you start to course correct your business. And then you have your post review. And this is where you look at everything that's happened and you take notes of what anomalies may have happened in the business. You make notes of what you want to do differently in the business. But post review is just as important as pre-planning. Okay. So those are 3 phases of planning. So I want to start with pre-planning. And pre-planning is it's a roadmap to looking at your business. And it starts with your sales. We talked about it starts with your sales plan. So I have this map here because my brother is coming to visit me. My brother and my nephew are coming from Virginia to Dallas next month. And it's 2 males in a car for 17 hours. My nephew is 17 and he knows everything. So they are going to get lost. They will have a plan. They will have a GPS, but something's going to happen. But they pre-planned it. They know how long it takes. They know the route to get here. And that is essentially what your sales plans will do for you. It's going to be your route to get to your final destinations, which is your sales plan. So my question is, do you have a sales plan? Are you doing a sales plan right now? Sales plans are very, very important because it keeps you accountable. I think when you don't have a sales plan, you get what you get, and it may not be what you want. So if you do that goal, like everything we do in life, there's a goal setting, and this is your goal setting for your business. Okay, so when we're talking about the sales plan, we are looking at we start at top line. So when I say top line, that's your total sales. So for example, say you want to do $350,000 for that year. That's a top line sales. Your gross margin is the profitability of your business, or your second line of profitability in your business. And so we want to look at is your total, your top line. Then we want to go down to a quarter. So Q1, 2, 3, and 4, your month, your week, and your day. Your week and day are optional. That is, I said it's retail 201. This is 101. It's retail 201, but it's good to have. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And what you want to have, what you want to input into the spreadsheet we spoke of, your strategy sheet, is you want to input your retail sales, your gross margin, and your seasonality. Your seasonality is really your peaks and valleys of your business. And when you're looking at your month and quarter, that is what your seasonality will be. So for example, sweaters, we know sweaters do well. They'll start to pick up now. So they'll start peaking now, whereas the spring they come down. So that's seasonality, the peaks and valleys of the sales season. And then what you'll need is you'll need notes of your opportunities, your risk, and your trends in your business. You'll need your profit and loss statement, and you can find that in your QuickBooks. You'll need your POS reporting, so which would have your retail sales and your gross margin. And we're using that for last year information. So let's take a look at how it all ties in. So this is a strategy sheet. This is what you will see in the Excel spreadsheet. And it's small, but let me walk you through it. So we use a strategy sheet for your pre-planning and your post-review. So your pre-planning is where you'll do all your work, and your post-review is where you'll see it actualized. You will populate in your last year information. So if we go to 1, you can see here under sales, it's highlighted in green. You put in your last year's sales. Then you'll step down to your gross margin, which is 1B, and that is your last year's gross margin dollars and your percent. So again, that's your second line of profitability. So you want to have that in. And then you want to go over to number 2, which is your annual sales. In this case, it's $350,000. It's in the green under total. So then it populates, you put that in, so it's not ready to populate yet. And then you're going to go over to your quarters. So now you're going to think about what each quarter represents to your total business. So in this case, Q1 is 15% of the total, Q2 is 23%, Q3 is 30%, and Q4 is 32%. So you want to start out with that. Once you put that in, it'll populate your quarters. Now you want to think about your months within each quarter. So 3A, so let's look at Q1. Q1 for January, it's 15% of Q1, not of the total, but of Q1. February is 35%, and March is 50%. Okay, so that's how you want to look at it. Once you put all this in, it'll populate the information for you. And then you go down to your profitability. So that is in 4, the very last thing we look at is your profitability. And you want to look at your cost of goods, or how the cost of your purchases and anything that goes into making the goods or creating the goods. Next is your operating expense, and that's pretty much everything else. Your rent, your Shopify fees, your sales associates fees, your team fees, whatever you have, all the other operating expenses goes here. And the reason why we do this is so we can see that is our gross margin, is our sales helping us cover our expenses, and are we profitable? So let's kind of look at this quickly. In January, you can see that there's a negative profit in January. And the reason being is that your operating expenses aren't going to change that much, because your rent's going to be the same, your salary is going to be the same, but because January is a softer month, it is less profitable, which is it's not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to make sure you have profitable months before. So if we go down to December, when we end the year and we go we go from December to January, you can see December was very profitable. You had $12,650 of profit in December, which is going to cover your January. So I hope that makes sense to everyone, because every month is not going to be profitable. We have to make sure that prior months we build in profit, and we bank that profit to cover the next month. Okay. So now let's look at profitability. So profitability, when I talk to clients, a lot of people don't understand that profitability, there's 3 different points of profitability in your business. The first line of profitability is your initial markup, or IMU. And that's the difference between your original price and the cost that you paid. And we look at that in dollars and we look at it in percent. And so the formula for that would be original price minus cost, or for the dollars. So in this example, 15 is our cost, our price. 5 is our cost, so $10 is a profitability. So for every time we sell that item, we get $10 back into our pocket. We paid $5 for it, we get $10 back. Or if you want to look at it from an 8% standpoint, it is your original cost minus your original price minus your cost divided into your original price. So for this example, it's 15 minus 5, or 10, divided into your 15, which would be 66.7% profit. The next line of profitability is your gross margin. And the difference between gross margin and initial margin is this is now your selling price. So it's your selling price, which has your selling reductions in your cost you paid. And that's also stated in dollars and percent. It's the same calculation. It's just selling price versus original price. So selling price minus your cost of goods gives you your gross margin. So this is your second tier of profitability. And it's important to talk about this because as you have promotions or markdowns, your selling price, your original price is being reduced. So what you originally thought you were going to get for that product, what you thought you were margin out in, you're now lowering it because now you have VIP discounts, you have a sale going on. So that just starts to bring down your gross margin. So your next and your final profit line is your net profit. And as your gross margin minus your cost of goods minus your operating expenses. And that now is your profit of your business. And that's what we saw on our strategy sheet. That very last group of numbers is this net profit. And it's very important to look at all this together so you know when you're going to buy items, you know what to start out from a profitability standpoint. What does your initial margin need to be to get to a gross margin so that you're profitable at the very end? If you start at a initial margin that's too low, you don't have any space to do markdowns or any kind of promotions, because then you get into a negative net profit. And so let me tie this all together. Let's go to an example of what this may look like. So this is a sales plan. And here, I'm going to do a couple scenarios here. So if you look at the first column, it's the plan. So in this case, we plan to do $200,000. Our cost sales is $60,000. We're going to do that with unit sales of 5,000. Our ticket price or original price is $50. We plan to sell at $40, which is 10% off. Our cost is $12. So our IMU is $190. Again, the IMU is your cost minus your ticket price minus your cost gives you to your IMU dollars. Your gross margin is $140,000, and that's the difference. Remember, the IMU is $190, but your gross margin is $140 because now you're looking at your selling price minus your cost to get your gross margin. So our IMU is at 76%, gross margin percent is at 70. We have expenses of $75,000. So in this case, in this example for our plan, we want to come out at $65,000 profit. So that's our gross margin minus our expenses gets us to a profit of $65,000. So the next scenario is what I see happen a lot to businesses. So in column 3 or 2, we're doing a 30% off sale. We're expecting the same traffic. So the same amount of people are coming in. And what this is a reaction. So I see a lot of retailers just react to what everyone else is doing. They didn't plan on doing a sale, but because everyone else is doing a sale, I'm going to do a sale too. This is what you end up getting when you do that. So 30% off. So your sales are now 170. You have the same cost sales. You're doing the same unit sales because you didn't market. You just turned on a promo. You didn't tell your customers that you're doing a promo. You're lowered your selling price. You can see blue is where your difference is happening. You lowered your selling price to now $35. Your IMU stayed the same, right? Because your ticket and your cost is the same. But what changed was your selling price. So now you went from having a gross margin dollars of 140 to now 115 because you've lowered that price. So now your margin is 65%. Expenses are the same. There's $75,000. Now your gross profit is $40,000 because you've taken your selling price down without your unit sales going up because you did not tell anyone you're doing this promo. You just turned it on. So the customers that were coming to you before are just getting a discount. You didn't tell any new customers to come in, or you didn't cause any demand or drive any traffic to your site or your store. The next example is an example where you actually planned it. You increase your traffic. So you did marketing, you increase your traffic. So therefore your unit sales went up. So in this case, unit sales went up to 6,500. Your retail sales went to 227,500. Your cost sales is 78. Your selling price is $35. So now your IMU went up because you're selling more units. So now your IMU is at 247. Your gross margin went up as well, is at 149,500. Same gross margin as the prior example with no traffic, but because you told your client, your customers that you are having this promotion and you got more traffic, your unit sales went up. So therefore your gross margin went up, even though your dollars went down. So you have to get your gross margin to rise or fall. What will change is your unit sales or your retail. If your unit sales go up, your retail probably goes down. If your retail goes up, your unit sales will come down. I'm sorry. If your your sales price goes down, then your units need to come up.
Yeah.
Right. So those two things are what you are manipulating to get your gross margin to be right or to be to your plan or higher than your plan. So in this case, you can see our gross margin is 149,500. Again, expenses stay the same. So now our profit is 74,500. And that's because we told our customers that we were doing something and we got traffic to our site or to our store versus not telling anyone anything and just turning a promo on. So hopefully that makes sense of how you can change profitability by just changing your sales price and then what you need. If you change your sales price, what you'll need. If your sales price goes down, your unit sales need to come up to make up that gross margin. And I went on to do 2 other examples. And the 2 other examples is almost like what you would need to do for Black Friday. So in this case, we're doing free shipping. So there is there's going to be a threshold of what you need to do to get free shipping. And that free shipping should be included in your cost. When you think about your cost of goods, free shipping should be part of it. So in this case, we have the same, so our $12 cost that we had before, we now said we're going to do free shipping. So now that $2 of free shipping is now in my cost. My cost is now $14. I have the same unit sales of $5,000. My selling price is $40. So now, and this is compared to, I'm sorry, this is compared to the first scenario. My IMU now went down to 180 from 190. My gross margin went down from 140 to 130. If we go all the way down to profitability, the expenses stay the same. So my profitability goes from 65,000 to 55,000 because I've added in free shipping. Because free shipping is a cost incurred to you, not to your customer. So when you decide to do free shipping, think about this. Think about what you have changed to your IMU and your gross margin. Now, here is an example of if you think about the threshold of what you want your customer to do to get the free shipping, in this case, in order for the customer to get the free shipping, they have to they have to spend $50 to get the free shipping. So then your IMU goes up, your gross margin goes up, and your profit goes up. In this case, it's $10 more than original. So I want to give an example of a promotion and how it changed your gross margin. And also for those who have .com businesses, what free shipping means, because throwing free shipment out there because everyone else is doing it, you just have to understand what it means for your business and how it affects your margin.
Darlene, can we just take a break for 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we see a lot in retailers, to your point of free shipping, is almost a must these days, especially if you have or you're on e-commerce channels. So would you recommend, as you build those sales plans, or you're looking at your cost structure, to automatically build in that free shipping expense almost as a standard?
Absolutely. Yes. Because that's how you have to think about it. When you're buying your goods, you have to think about, I'm adding $2 to it. I'm adding $3.50. Now, what I want to talk to is people who have .com businesses. In spring, your package, your shipping may be $2. But think about your product when you go to fall. Don't just do a blanket $2 for all the full year, because when you get to fall, you're now shipping denim and sweaters, and if you have shoes, you're shipping boots.
Yes.
That product is getting heavier. So you have to think about that cost differently. Don't do a blanket $2 across your year. Think about spring and think about summer. Think about what you're shipping and put that into your cost.
Yes, and that's a very important point. I actually worked with a food manufacturer who shipped teas, and we all understand teas are very light. So it was bagged tea, but then they had promotions where they would do kind of 10 boxes that were really nice, but 10 is heavier. So if you have that same cost structure for your free shipping and thresholds, you have to take that into account. The other issue from a shipping standpoint is the cube. So there's two factors that really affect your shipping costs. Is the weight and then the cube that package takes up in a truck, literally. So when they cube out the trucks for delivery. So just as a tidbit of information, to say if you're shipping jewelry or something that is light but has a bigger dimensions, you're going to have to build that into your cost. Your local postal service, a post office, will be your friend, and really helping you find the most efficient way to ship your packages. But that's a great point that you made in regards to the seasonality and the differences of your product that you'll be shipping, and building in those thresholds. So that's where you see free shipping with a minimum purchase of, because you have to build in that profitability structure, as I can ship this free to you if you get to this certain price point using this type of an exercise. So this is great.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Good. Glad to hear. Okay. So all this information, and we just went over a lot of information. All of the numbers, the metrics that you need are in your POS system. So my question is, what POS system are you using? Are you using a POS system? What is your system of record? So I know a lot of my clients use Shopify. My brick and mortar stores, they're using Lightspeed. There are several systems out there. So I would love to see what everyone is using. Okay, so now we've done our top line sales. Remember, that's our total sales. We've said we're going to do $350,000. We've broken it down by quarter, by month. We know our sales. We know our gross margin. Now you go even further. So now you have to start looking at what your department's contribution are to your total, and then within the departments, what those class level contributions. So, for example, a department is women's. So you may have a website or a store that has women's, men's, and children's. So those would be your three departments. Under women's could be your classification of tops. So you may have tops, denim, sweaters, outerwear, could be your classifications. It's just a way to bucket your product on based off of the in use. Within a class could be a subclass. You can have short sleeves under tops, long sleeves, sleeveless could be under tops. That way you can understand. And the reason why you go down to such a granular level is because you want to understand what is driving your sales throughout your year. So we know that in a subclass of tops, of short sleeve tops, in spring season, when you get to Q2, is a big driver. When you get into Q3, which is what we're in now, it starts to fall off, but long sleeves kick in. So you want to see what's happening. So that's why you go down to that subclass level. In order to create our class and department plans, same information we needed from a total standpoint. We look at our retail sales and our unit sales. And what you'll need, same kind of information. You'll need your opportunities, your risks, your trends. You need to understand that. You need your point of sales reporting with your retail sales and your unit sales. So that is what you need to think of before you start your department class plans. And in your worksheet, your workbook is a place to fill this all out so you can kind of think about it before you actually get into the system. And so a department plan sheet will look something like this. So you will have so in your template, your strategy template, you have a department class tab. And this is where you will put this information, and you will just put in your last year, which is that orange section. This is what happened last year. And now you can start populating your this year and think about any opportunities you had in your business. Think about the fashion trends. So we may be in a dress season, a dress cycle, and not a skirt cycle. So you will change your contributions. You may want to shift your selling price. Maybe you have found something that is a lower selling price, but gives you a great margin. Then you may change your selling price. So if we look at this sheet, we start out with on last year, so the orange side, last year my total sales in women's was $203,200. It was 80% of my total business. I did 5,000 units and a selling price of 48. It's good to know your selling price because you need to understand how much is your customer willing to pay. If you are thinking that you are a luxury brand, but your customer is paying $40.48, you're probably not a luxury brand. Listen to your customer and not what you think you are. Your customer is telling you differently. They're telling you if you have this selling price, more than likely you're doing a lot of markdowns, and she's telling you this is the price I would pay for your goods. Mm. And I know Deanna talked about your customer in your last session. It's so important to know who your customer is, and the numbers help you. Your customers, I'm sorry, your numbers help you with really vetting through who your customer is, or who you think the customer is, or who you think you're talking to versus who actually is shopping you. So your numbers start telling you a little bit of that story. So here Tops was 33.2% of the business at $67,500. We sold it at $30. So when I go over to look at this year's plan, I have Tops still at 30% of the business. The AUR stayed the same. I have a gross margin of 55%. So I have my sales, my contribution, my percent contribution, my unit sales, my selling price, my gross margin dollars. Because remember, when we looked at total, when we had that total, we knew exactly how much sales we wanted to do. We wanted to do 350,000. We knew how much in gross margin we wanted to do. We wanted 54% gross margin, or $180,000 in gross margin dollars. So as you are populating this sheet, you want it all to roll up to that goal. So you'll see your total at the bottom and you'll see your goal. If you're not rolling up to that goal, you need to make some tweaks. So for example, if we had changed, let's say we changed our percent, instead of being 75% of our business in women's, we changed that to be 90%, and home to only be 10%. More than likely we'll miss our gross margin dollars, because look at women's is only a 52.5 gross margin. If that becomes 90% of my business, then my gross margin will come down, because home is actually what's helping drive my gross margin. It's at a 58.9 gross margin. So those are some of the things you should think about as you're populating this sheet. Think about your contribution, think about the gross margin. If you have a high gross margin goal, that means you need to sell a lot of high gross margin goods. It's called gross margin mix. So you have to understand your mix. I know we have a question and answer session coming up, so you may have questions about this, but this is your department class sheet. Again, top line goals, then we go down to our class goals. Okay. So I think we covered a lot. I think it's maybe a good place to.
Yes, we have a lot of great information.
Yeah.
One of the questions is thank you for kind of mentioning the gross profit mix, because when I was a buyer many moons ago, each item that I brought into my portfolio answered a certain portion of my sales plan. So you have those items that are high unit sales, that may be a little bit of a lower gross, but they help, or we kind of call them their loss leaders, who are used to get people in the door, that you put out there from a marketing standpoint. They're usually a little bit more trendy, but they're not necessarily more of your high gross. Your goal is to get them into the door. Then you have your other items that are your high gross items that you're not going to mark down, but they sell well. You know, they're kind of your baseline sales items, those add-ons that you always try to get. When you look at your gross profit, and if you can kind of walk me through what would be your thought process as a buyer or a boutique owner, how do you figure out which pocket or bucket those items may fill into? So whether it's a unit sales driver, a gross profit driver, or just a dollar ring average sales price target. See if there's any questions.
And I know that was a lot to think about.
Yeah. And I think you're going to get into this in the next section, but especially with the channel plans, I think especially with a lot of the emerging channels, and Deanna's going to get into this in the last channel, a last session in a little more detail. But just talking about the mix of your portfolio and how the different channels have different profitability that you will have to mix into your financial plan. I think that's a great segue into the next section.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next is your channel plan. So you've done top line, you've done your department and your class. Now, where's that product going? And that's your channels. So your sales will happen in brick and mortar, and then down to individual stores, your website, or your online marketplace. You look at this business the same exact way you looked at it for your class and your total. You're looking at retail sales, unit sales, opportunities. If you have an omni-channel, meaning you have multiple channels, whether it's a brick and mortar and a website, or a website in a marketplace, what you want to think about is, how are each one of these contributing to my total business? Your brick and mortar may be 60% of your business, and your website is now 40%. How does that gross margin mix? Because remember, brick and mortar does not have shipping. So now you have to think about your cost average with your brick and mortar cost sales and your website cost sales, which will have shipping involved. So you have to think about that margin. If you have brick and mortar stores and you have multiple stores, how does each store perform? Because each store is not going to perform the same. They're not going to have the same inventory, because you have some differences even within the same city. Even if they're in the same city, depending on what community they're in, they're going to sell different products. So you have to look at them at the same level. You have to look at their top line sales and then their department and class sales. You may have a store that is a strong men's store, but not a strong women's store, which means you need to inventory it differently. You need to plan it from a sales standpoint differently. And then your website, even in a website, you have seasonality that may not be the same as your brick and mortar, because you may have a customer that is shopping you because they are a distance away from you, right? So maybe you're in Maryland, but they're in Florida. Florida, Maryland seasonality is going to be a little different. You may have shorts last longer in Florida, and you need to have an additional, buy for Florida for the month of August, September, where you wouldn't need that in Maryland. So you have to think about those different things of what's happening to that customer and where they are. And most of your POS systems will show you where your customers, if you're on a website or even brick and mortar, but in your website, it'll tell you where your customer is shopping you from. So really pay attention to that, because that's going to tell you your seasonality. Your seasonality of your customer may not be exactly what you are in your location, especially if you're in a website.
And I think one of the key points here, Darlene, is because we're such a, with the, I'm dating myself here when I say the invention of the internet, because there was a time when it wasn't around, right? We remember those days.
Yes.
So with the, all the advancements in technology and social media and things of that nature, you can almost, depending on who you're marketing to, cater to a particular audience. So say if you only want to sell online your, summer wear, you can cater to those folks or those customers who are in those warmer climates and do some additional marketing if that's going to be in your online store. So that's one of the benefits of having those multiple channels, is that you can, when the sales may slow down here in January in Maryland because it's colder out, folks. I know I'm a person, if I can hibernate, I would. I'm not a cold weather person. So But for to combat that, if you have a great, swimsuit and, leisure wear or summer wear, you might want to do more marketing to folks in Florida, California, Arizona, those folks that are, still in those hot water, even internationally. So for those for vacationers. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can play around with your marketplace, especially when you have those multiple. That's one of the benefits of having multiple channels, is that you can kind of insulate yourself from a lot of that seasonality that may happen in your brick and mortar.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point. All righty. Okay. Let's take a break. If we have any questions about what we just covered, love to hear them. Love to hear what's going on in your head right now.
Mm-hmm. One question that came up, Darlene, was when do you know? I think you mentioned it in the very beginning. When do you know to course correct? Because a lot of times, as you said, you might have some slower months, a bit of seasonality. Your January might be a little slow, but how slow is too slow? When you look at, a negative number, it's a little jarring. So how do you know when to course correct, and, what's that threshold?
Yeah. So I would say that if you had a quarter of negative, course correct immediately. Because I've been in businesses that have been great, and I've been in businesses that slowed down, who waited and hoped. Hope was a strategy.
The hope strategy.
The hope strategy did not work for Payless. So you want to look at, if you have more than 3 months, you need to start course correcting. Mm-hmm. If you have had a successful quarter, so Q4 is usually where you bank money. Mm-hmm. If you've banked enough to cover that next quarter, and it's going to be soft, then you're okay. But you have to make sure Q4, and that's why you do a sales plan, so you can kind of lay it out and see what you think is going to happen, or you believe is going to happen, and then course correct from there. But I would say more than 3 months, you need to course correct. You need to look at what's happening within every category to see what is bringing you down. And again, if it's because you started your business thinking that you're a luxury brand, but you end up being a value price brand, go with it and start giving your customers that value price product, meaning that they're buying it from you at $40. Make sure you're margining out at a higher margin and not a 43%. So if I started a luxury brand and I had luxury prices of $120, right, for a tee, and the customers are really spending $40, well, I'm taking a huge markdown. So instead of bringing your gross margin down and bringing your profit down, start now course correcting and buying that product at the price point that they want to buy it at, but at a good margin. So back into it that way.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then the other piece that we just got a question. So we have a question from Isaac. He mentioned, you mentioned seasonality. What is the best way to adjust seasonality during this pandemic? For example, do you think there will be an upshift as the pandemic slows down?
Mm-hmm. So when we started out in the pandemic in February, I told all my boutiques and brands to bring down their sales in Q2. We brought down by 40% to what we originally had planned. Q3 brought down 30%. And Q4, I have flat, because I believe that we are going to see somewhat a resurgence as the pandemic starts to flatten out. But not only that, but because people are now going to want to spend a lot of money for holidays, they're going to want to start celebrating, right? We've had so much that we haven't had a chance to celebrate, but I think holidays are going to be very strong. Yeah. So that was my guidance. Down for Q2, 40%. Q3 was down 30%. And Q4, we had flat to our original plan or to last year. Does that answer your question, Isaac?
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great answer.
Yeah. And I would hedge for Q1. My hedge would be down about 10%, just hedging a little bit. And it depends on who your customer is as well.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Okay. So now we'll talk about in season, and this is where we start doing the course correcting. So my brother's going along. He has his map, his GPS is on. He's but there's going to be some road work happening. There's going to be something that's going to be off to move him off of his original plan, and this happens all the time in business. Having a plan is what helps you to be able to troubleshoot and course correct along the way. When you don't have a plan, this is when people get in reactionary mode and they just do things that are against what they should be doing because they didn't have a plan to start out with. So this is just in season. It is just course correcting to what's happening in your business now, which I'm glad you asked a question, Isaac. That is, Corona, the COVID virus has definitely changed everything. So this is where you course correct. So here are some metrics that you should be looking at in your business. And all of this can come out of your POS system. You should be looking at your retail sales, your unit sales, your sell price. I can't say enough about looking at your selling price because it's your customer. That's how they're voting to pay for your goods. And then your gross margin. And what's important to look at when you're looking at these metrics, you want to look at your top line sales. You want to look at your class level, and then you want to look at your top 10. Because if something's happening in your business, if you just look at your top line number, you are not seeing everything that's happening. You're not seeing where you could be maximizing something or where you need to be fixing or course correcting. Mm-hmm. Because you're looking at a top line number. But looking at a class level, you will see what class may not be working, acting the way you expected. If you're looking at your top 10 items, you're seeing what really is driving your business. I would tell you that 20% of your items do 80% of your sales. No matter what company I work for, whatever industry I've been in, those 20% of my items have always driven 80% of my sales. So if you're not looking at that top 10, top 20 items, you're going to miss something. So definitely look to that level. And then just wanted to give you some tips on how to look at your numbers. If you are to project out your sales, if you are in your midweek, say you look at your business, I recommend everyone look at least by Wednesday, Thursday, so you know if you need to react to anything. So if you're looking at your week to date sales, in order to find out what you're going to do for the week, the calculation is your week to date divided into the percent of the week. So if we are sitting in, today is Tuesday. Tuesday is 30% of the week. So you just take the number of days that you're in divided by the number of days in the week. And that gives you your percent. If this example, we've done $500 week to date, we're 40% into the week. That means we're going to have a total week of $1,250. So that's a way to look at, if I'm here, then what am I going to do? If your plan for the week is $1,250 or below, then you're good. If the plan is higher than $1,250, then you need to do something now to make that up for the weekend. Because the weekend is typically a higher percent of your sales week than the beginning of the week. Same exercise, but at a month to date. If you're looking at your month to date, it's your month to date divided into the percent that month is that you are into that month. So in this case, we've done $2,500 month to date. You should say month to date, not week to date. Month to date, 40% of the month is in. So we are projected to do $6,250 in sales, or $6,250 in sales for that month. So that's how you can project against what you plan to do. And you can make adjustments in your marketing, your pricing. You can do focus items. If you're looking at down to an item level, you know where you need to do promotions on a specific item or classification. And then you can also, if you have a team, you can give your team recommendations of what they need to be focused on, what should be their priorities. Mm-hmm. And again, you can do this for whether it's a product or a service industry. Service industry, you can do the same exact thing. You can project out what your week should be and forecast what you need to do. So from a monthly standpoint, you look at the same metrics, but you want to throw in inventory at this point because you want to see how healthy is my inventory? Is my inventory doing what I expected to do? I always said to my customers, and again, it's gonna age me. What have you done for me lately? Because your inventory should be doing the work for you. That is the work, right? Mm-hmm. So you should be looking at your retail sales, your retail inventory, your receipts, your weeks on hand, your average inventory, which is your average inventory divided by your inventory divided by your average weekly sales units. Yeah. And we're going to go a little further into that, but it's very key to understand how many weeks of hand do I need to have, or weeks of supply should I have to do my business. And one of the things that we use to do that is an open to buy. Mm-hmm. So my question is, who's using an open to buy? Anyone using an open to buy system or calculating it on an Excel spreadsheet? Because we're going to go into talking about best practices of inventory. And one of the crucial things to have to buy your inventory is an open to buy worksheet or program. I would say that whenever I work with a client for the first time, the initial consultation is always around how much inventory should I buy and when do I mark it down? Mm-hmm. Those are always going to be one of those questions. Everyone gets stuck there, whether you're new in business or you're experienced, mm-hmm. because your inventory is your biggest asset or liability in your business, right? Probably about 40% of your expenses are going towards inventory. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that you are planning it, you are looking at it, and you have thoughts around your inventory. And the open to buy is where you do that. So let's talk about best practices for inventory. You have to know when to buy your inventory. And when to buy your inventory is going to be based off your planned sales and your desired inventory level. So, that's why we've been doing this sales plan. So we know when we're going to sell, when we expect our sales to happen. We know what classifications we expect those sales to happen in. So now we know, we get an idea of how much inventory we should have. And when you're buying inventory forward, when you're looking forward. I know a lot of us buy immediates now, so you're buying for the next month or the next 2 months. But you need to buy based off of not just how much I have on my credit card or what I like when I go to market or when I'm, on a virtual trade show. Mm-hmm. Not just what I like, but what do I need? What I have a plan. I know I need, instead of dresses, and this is where people get in trouble. If you're not looking at your sales plan, you're going to buy what you're selling well right now. A lot of my clients did very well. Dresses always do well in Q2. Always, always, always. They always drop off in Q3. But if you're new and you're not looking at your sales plan, you're going to think that sales keep happening. And so you're going to keep buying dresses and you're buying markdowns. Mm. That's why you have a sales plan. That's why you're looking at seasonality, so that you don't make that mistake. Okay, so know what to buy. I just jumped in front of myself. So number 2 is know what to buy. That example of dresses is that. If I know my sales plan is to dresses, I know what to be buying for the next months out. And so if I go into market and I see these great dresses because now I have a dress trend and I don't want to stop that dress trend is going to stop on you. It's not you stopping it. It's going to stop because your customer is voted. It voted last year. They don't want any more dresses after September. It will happen this year too. But you're going to look at the numbers and you're going to think, but if I don't buy dresses, I'm going to miss something. You're not going to miss something because you know now they're switched off to more bottoms and sweaters. Third is know how much to buy. So you want to base your buys on a number of weeks you like to carry the product. If this varies by store and product, I have e-commerce clients and I have brick and mortar clients. My e-commerce clients, we typically buy for about 6 weeks on hand. So enough to sell for 6 weeks because they go to market much faster. Their customers are coming to them much faster. Think about it. You're always on your phone. So you're looking at your favorite shops. But my brick and mortar, their customers come not as frequently. So we carry a little bit more inventory or weeks on hand. So my e-commerce are usually about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the person, depending on the owner. Some owners like buying a lot or buying more frequently. So you may do 4 to 6 weeks. My brick and mortar are probably about 10 weeks on hand, which means that inventory should be gone in the 10th week. Okay. And now the next thing is know when to exit or mark down the inventory. And that is really based off of your desired selling period. So we'll talk more about this on the next slide. Because remember I said the 2 questions I get are how much inventory and when to mark down. So knowing your exit strategy or your markdown, you want to think about your selling period. If I want to sell for 10 weeks, then I should have 85% of my inventory sold through by the 8th week, because in 2 weeks, I'm gonna mark it down. So 85% sold through is a very good metrics against your sales. So you kind of know if an item is doing well. So remember how I said you should be in season, you should be looking at your sales at a total, you should be looking at it at a class level and your top styles. If you look at your sell through, you can see what is doing well and what is not doing well. And so that means you need to take actions along the way. And so sell through is total sales divided by your total available inventory. Your total in this example here is not correct. It's not correct, but we're going to use it. Your current inventory is 8,500. Your total sales is 10,500. So you're going to take your 10,500, your sales, divided by your total inventory. Your total inventory is going to be your current inventory plus what you've sold. That's what you had totally available to sell. And in this case, it's 70%. This, instead of being 8,500, it should be 10,500 instead of the 6,500. In this case, it is actually 55% sell through. So that's the correction, but same premise. So in this item, if I was a 10-week item, I should have been sold through 85%, but I'm sold 70%, which means I need to do some kind of action. And your action would be, you'll take a deeper markdown. You can promote it, or you can take a deeper markdown at clearance. Instead of being 30% off, you're 50% off. Or you can do a promo earlier. So if you are in say for example, you're in your 3rd week and you can tell already it's not going to do well, start promoting it early. Because again, hope is not a strategy. I don't hope that it does well. Oh, but give it one more week. Like I have a lot of buyers who tell me, give it one more week, darling, one more week. Well, what's different? If you tell me because the weather is going to drop by 30 degrees and that sweater's going to start selling, okay. But if we're already selling sweaters and sweaters are doing well, but this item is not doing well, guess what? This item is not going to pick up. So hope is not a strategy. So to determine if it's a slow item, let's talk about that. If the item is to sell at 85% sell through in 8 weeks, what you're going to do to determine whether item every week, if an item is doing well, you're going to take that 85% divided by a number of weeks. So in this case, 85 divided by 8 means that every week you should have 11% sell through for that item.
It's a good way to break it down.
Yeah. Another way to look at it is how many weeks on hand do I have? If I'm looking to be at 10 weeks, if I'm looking to sell through at 10 weeks and I'm at the 8th week, I should have 2 weeks on hand of sales. The only caveat to that is if I know I'm going to go into a peak week. If I'm going into Black Friday, then maybe I have 4 weeks of sales because I'm going into Black Friday. But the number of weeks you have left are the number of weeks you should have on hand. If you have more than that, you have a slow item.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So this is a big one. This is the O to buy sheet. And this is very, like I said, it's important so you can look forward to what you should be buying, not what's happening in your business now, but what you know is going to happen. Open and buy is determined by looking at your monthly sales. So all the work we've done before. You look at your sales, your markdowns as a percent of your total business. Typically, I say markdowns about 10% of your business. Some people don't have any I have a couple of my clients have no markdowns other than their VIP promotions.
Okay.
You want to think about the number of weeks that you want to carry your product. You want to look at your receipts that are coming in. And you want to think about your beginning of month inventory based off of your weeks on hand. So let's look at this example for January. January sales are $78.75 for the month of January. You divide that by 4. So you will get that you're selling $1,979 a week. And then you multiply that by 10, your 10 weeks on hand that you want. So you will get your inventory is 19,687. I rounded to 20,000. So that's how you know how much inventory you need at the beginning of a month. When you think about your open and buy is looking at your next month. So that green line is looking at what I have now and what I need to have at the next month's beginning of month. Now you may just look at this and say, okay, yep, February I need $45,000 in inventory. I'm starting with 20,000. Yep, I'm gonna buy 25,000. Well, yeah, that's fine, but you're not taking into account your sales and your markdowns. So you see in this case, this buyer said, yep, did the math. I need $25,000 in receipts to get me to that February. But no, you still have open and buy. You have open and buy of $8,662.50 because that's your sales and your markdowns. So you have to buy whatever is reducing your inventory. So sales and markdowns reduce your inventory. So that's an open and buy. And you want to look at this going forward. So for right now, most of my customers are buying to November. Yeah, some are buying December, but most have bought at least through November. They bought through Black Friday. And our next meeting, we'll talk about December and January. So you want to be looking forward. So that's an open buy, very crucial to have. I would say if you've ever been to any market, if you've been to Magic, for example, in Las Vegas, one of the things they ask you to have is, do you have your open to buy? Because that's when vendors know that you are serious about your business because you have this plan and they know how much money you have open to spend. So that's open to buy. So we've covered pre-season, in-season, now for post-season. So post-season is how you are looking at what happened. What happened in my business against how I planned? What will I do differently? How did marketing affect me? How did my competition affect me? how the weather affects my business. Think about right now what's going on from a weather standpoint. We have the hurricanes, we have fires, we have so many things happening. We have all these anomalies. You have to make notes of what is happening right now, because you need to know if you base next year off of the anomalies that happen now, you're going to miss business. Mm-hmm. Right? Because either I had something that made my sales go up higher than normal or something that brought my sales down. I have to note that. So when I'm planning for next year, I know what happened and I can plan so I can course correct. And then you have to understand what are your opportunities? What were your wins? Because whatever you had that were your wins, you want to maximize on that win. And whatever your opportunities are, you want to minimize that by doing something differently. So post review is just as important as your pre-review. It really is your pre-review in reverse.
Or the setup for your pre-review for your future strategy.
It really is a setup for your pre-review. All right. I love it. Okay, that's it.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Darlene. That was awesome. A lot of great information. I know my mind is kind of digesting a lot of these spreadsheets and the financial, kind of numbers. The one question that I have for you is, just kind of continue the conversation around the post review is what would be your recommendation as you going through your year to notate some of those trends and factors that affected your sales? What would be your recommendation, and how do you factor that in with your future planning?
Yeah. So most of my clients they do a business review every Monday. Mm-hmm. In their Monday review, they will have notes. And if you look at the strategy sheet, your strategy sheet has notes at the very bottom. If you want, you can put all your notes in that strategy sheet. But my clients have a business review. They look at their business on Monday. They put those notes so that every week we know what happened. Mm-hmm. And we come back to that. So how you will use that, for example, for Q2 and Q3 versus if the virus have subsided and we're back to the new norm, how I would plan for Q2 and Q3. I know my business was down. Say, for example, I had a June and I did $20,000. I normally did $40,000 the year before. I will now take it back to that $40,000. Everything should be okay. So you want to look at your trend in your business. But if your trend in your business, your traffic has dropped off, you don't want to go back to that 40. You want to say, okay, my traffic has dropped off. Maybe I go to 30. So I did 20 last year. Maybe I go up to 30 because I see my trend in my business. The other thing to look at is when you look at seasonality, it is how each month build onto each other. So for example, March, because it has March, April, I call it Marple because March, April has Easter. If I have March, April if March does 50% more than February because of Easter and Easter moved out to April, then I want to drop that number down to 100%. Like you want to think about that's how you want to think about it. What's my month over month contribution?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you kind of look at it from a quarterly standpoint. You have to break out and do a little bit more seasonality and notate. When I was a buyer, I was a buyer for food, and that was a major factor for butter specifically because butter sales were highly impacted by the holidays. Of course, when you think baking. Mm-hmm. So whenever you look at Easter as well as kosher for Passover, yeah. That was a huge factor because those holidays definitely shift around based on the calendar. So I think, that's a huge factor in looking at, plotting out from a month as well as a quarter, making sure you notate, some of those changes and plan for it. We have a question from Marilyn Johnson. Thank you so much for your question, Marilyn. She said her head is spinning with a lot of the, all this great information. What is the best way to adapt this to a service-oriented business?
Yeah. So I would say, Marilyn, what you would want to look at, because you're going to look at the same thing. What do I want to do annually? What I want to do at a quarter in a month, right? That's the same thing. So that first section is same. When we get to the classification department, you want to do it from your services. What services do you offer? Because your services have different value attached to them. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to do the same thing. What's your contribution based off of your service? And that's how I'll use it. And from a margin standpoint, there's a cost of you doing that service versus what you charge for that service. So think about that. What's the cost that I'm due for that service versus, for me, I look at my hourly, how much I would look at it from an hourly standpoint versus how much I actually charge my clients for, and see, what's my gross margin.
And Marilyn has a wonderful business here. She creates custom clothing and alterations for ready to wear,
Okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
then her as her prime service, and then she also rents costumes to theaters.
Oh,
So
wow.
thank you, Marilyn. That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
I miss going to the theater.
So do I. Very
I
cool.
definitely miss doing it, but that's an awesome service. Another question we have is, do you think it's a good idea to increase inventory getting ready for the standard holiday sales increase, but also take into account the overall recent drop in sales?
Yeah. So, like I said before, if you start with where you are now and you know that, I'm September, October drops off, it's 90% of September, but November is 120% higher than October. You have your baseline of September, you know what you have planned for October, so then you know November as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So if you take where your trend is right now and just do your seasonality, what percent is October to September, November to October, then you have an idea what November should be. And again, I gave my clients a blanket goal of they'll be flat for Q4. So if you have business from last year, then I would say you'd be flat to last year. If you don't, I would use where you are now, what your sales have been in August and September, knowing that October typically drops off, November would pick up. So if you know November is 120% higher than September, then that's your new November number.
Gotcha.
And then
Gotcha.
you buy your inventory that way. Yeah. Now, what I have been saying here is, here's my opinion. Be ready for sales to happen earlier than Black Friday, because Amazon has moved Prime to October. That may be the kickoff of the holiday season, because people may start thinking holiday. And a lot of, like, Target is going to start doing October sales as well. Target will do it because they can't have the rush of crowds in their store. So think about it, from brick and mortar, those big businesses that need the crowds to come in, that have Black Friday crowds, they're not going to have that this year. So in order for them to do it, they need to spread those sales out, and they will
That's a
spread them
great point. Great point.
Yeah, they will spread
Great
them
point.
early in November. They will spread them into October. So just be on the lookout for that.
And that's a great point, because here it's a little bit different because you're in Texas.
Yeah.
Here in Prince George's County, we're still at 50% of our occupancy
Okay.
for the retailers. So that's a great point, that we will not be able to have those huge rush that we're typically accustomed to for Black Friday this year. So a lot of it is going to be online. I've already seen just within my internal circle, a lot of folks are starting to say, I want to put my Christmas tree up. So to your point,
Yeah.
folks are getting into that holiday mindset a bit early. It might be emotional, as well as just, we just need something to brighten,
Right. Yeah.
what's going on. Or I'm just tired of looking at this blank wall in my house for the last 6 months, right? I like your point. I think one of the key takeaways for today is hope is not a strategy. All right. So if we look at from a retail perspective, some of the brands that are not with us, I think because hope was a strategy, how can you give ideas, or companies can really start planning those marketing and looking at their sales to say, okay, if we look at this quarter that has been declining, how do we revamp, or how much should I invest in, markdowns versus marketing, for example? How do you make that decision? What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, I think that with us flattening out somewhat, again, you're right. I'm in Dallas, so Dallas is very different than where you are. But I believe that Q4 is going to be good, great, actually. And even if you look at Deloitte and Touche, they look at the retail sector. They're saying that either it's going to be flat or up to last year, 3% up to last year. So everyone is very hopeful for Q4. I would say that you need to make sure you're marketing to get that customer to remember you, know you, come to you when everything starts to move again, especially if bigger retailers are going to start to do promotions early. You want to be in that fight, right? Don't not be in that fight, but start marketing to your customers early. Let them know what you have early. So I would say marketing is where I would go first before I would go to markdowns. Because if you market and get them there, then you don't have the markdowns.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now you'll do promotions because Q4 is a promotional season, but I would say market, get that customer to your site or to your store.
And one of the things that we're preaching to a lot of all of our businesses, especially with the pandemic, is you can't rely on just the customers you have now. You're constantly in the mode of customer acquisition and brand expansion. So to your point earlier, looking at the different customer bases that might be different from your brick and mortar to your e-commerce and your other omni-channel, your marketplace customer may be a bit different. So your marketing strategies and plans should speak to those different customers and different channels, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Know who you want to come through your door or to your site, because people are looking for different things, right? So if I think about brick and mortar, a lot of people are looking at those community. I want to buy from a small business, a local business, because I know them. I feel safe going to the store. Also, if you're a brick and mortar, how are you showing that you're safe? Like what procedures are you doing? Make sure you're letting them know about that. And then from a e-commerce standpoint, people are going to an e-commerce, let them know who you are. If they don't know who you are, get the marketing out there so they now know that you are in business. They know what you have to offer. It is nothing. I would say nothing is the same. Nothing is the same right now. I have a customer in Portland, Oregon, who fires are happening. She did not have a website. She was purely brick and mortar, but she started doing social selling, and her sales for the month of July and August were higher than last year.
Wow. That's awesome.
We're higher than last year because she started doing something different. I'm like, it's not the same. She had a soft April, but she started picking up because she did that. Also, I would say know who your competitor is. If you're a brick and mortar, all your competitors still in business, because you are. I don't want to sound crass by saying it, but you're trying to steal market share. Like, in order for you to be in business, you have to steal that market share of that store that closed. What were they doing, and how can you take that business? And if you're a service industry, same thing. Who was your customer? How can you take that customer? How do you get their attention? Because there are stores and businesses that are closing. You need to grab that market share.
Yeah, and it's all about how do you fill that gap, right? So whether I think in our first session, Deanna spoke to, from a consumer standpoint, what problem are you solving in your business? So whether you're a service provider or a product-oriented retailer, your business needs to be solving some form of a consumer issue or problem that they can't solve for themselves. So they're seeking your services or your product to do that. So I think that's a great point of filling that gap and looking at additional opportunities, especially with COVID. The key word, and I hate to say this, is pivot. right?
Yeah.
We probably heard, we probably have never said pivot as much now and as much in our lives as we've said it probably in 2020. So but I think there's a few things we'll take from today. Hope is not a strategy, and you must be able to pivot. We do have a question here from another one of our guests who says a lot of information. They're looking to get more learning. Who would be the best to have on their team to help with this? A bookkeeper, CPA, one of our score advisors, great plug there, as well as someone also for your capacity and expertise. What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, I would say that a bookkeeper and CPA look at your total business. They're not looking at your inventory by class. So you'll need either score or someone like me because we're the experts in this part. And it's funny because I have a client who's in Atlanta and she said she talked to her CPA and said, I know I need this, but can you do it? And the CPA is like, absolutely not. You need a different person.
Yeah.
So the CPA is looking at your total. They're looking at your business in a very different way. And if you tell them that you're looking at an inventory person, they will be like, yeah, you need that person. So I would say score or someone like me.
Perfect. Because I think your CPA, if we look at it from a mindset, you're a strategist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at reading the numbers and understanding, whereas a CPA is more telling you, here's your trends. You're going to have a problem in Q4.
Right.
You know, your cash flow is short.
Right.
Your things of that nature, as opposed to it's a different mindset going into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at in big businesses, I worked, so my merchandising financial strategies were different from the financial department strategies. We talked to each other, we reconciled, but they were looking at us saying, okay, what can you tell us about the inventory? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us? So we work together, but we're working kind of parallel to each other.
Got you. Awesome point. Awesome point.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's any other questions. Thank you so much, Darlene.
Yeah,
this was
great.
wonderful, wonderful content. I have like a page of my own notes that I took from my own learning. Great content. We truly appreciate you. One of the things that we really just want to be thankful of is just the sponsorship by Pepco Holdings, our partnerships with Bowie Bick, with FFC First to bring forth this Emerge Stronger campaign. Our goal is to just really help businesses map out a strategy to be successful through this pandemic and any other external threats that may come along their business. So we're really appreciative of all your expertise and information you got us all kind of jotting down that we now need to get going. One of the things we also wanted to make sure our participants knew, a service that we offer on our Merge Stronger page is you can sign up and speak to counselors one-on-one, and these are industry experts similar to Darlene who can really help you brainstorm some ideas or any questions. It's a safe place for you to bring forth just ideas and questions and concerns that you have about your business. So the link is in our chat box for the counseling sessions. And then also please complete the survey that you'll be prompted at the end of the webinar today. We want your feedback. Also share with us what other webinars would you like to see presented either by our Merge Stronger campaign or from the Economic Development Corporation here in Prince George's County. As always, first and foremost, we are a resource to you as a business in the county. We appreciate you being here today, but we want to make sure that we fulfill some of your questions and concerns as you move forth during this time. Thank you for attending. You'll be sent some post-webinar information, and we appreciate your time today. Be sure to register for our next webinar on Wednesday, October 6th. Deanna McIntosh will be presenting supply chains for your retailers. So looking at how to increase and be more efficient with your supply chain that will help insulate you from those external threats. We thank you for today, and we'll see you soon.